Hello, today we are going to do chapter 7, the robbery. And let's see what happens here in this story. Number one, the settings. We are introduced to two young men. We don't know their names. And they had just come out of prison. They were Fagin's accomplices, they were Fagin's men. And we're also introduced to a man called Toby who assists Bill Sykes in robbing a house in Chertsey. In the settings, we also see Chertsey. This is a place where Bill Sykes and Toby, and Fagin, of course, they plan to rob a house. And of course, while going to Chertsey, Bill Sykes and Oliver they cross a market at Smithfield. So this my story map is really filled out. So what I've done is I've started writing it here. We have not reached the climax of the story, but I just need some space to write it. The summaries of the other chapters. When we come to the climax, I'll mention it. Now, I hope you can see this clearly. So, what happens in chapter 7? Mr. Bumble, he comes to London, and after having finished his business, he sees a notice in the paper, and it's about Oliver. And a reward is being offered of £5 to somebody with information about Oliver's past or where or Oliver's whereabouts. Of course, Mr. Brownlow had given his address too. So Mr. Bumble, he was a greedy man. He wouldn't leave those £5. And so he went right up to Pentville to meet Mr. Brownlow. Unfortunately, he tells Mr. Brownlow all lies about poor Oliver. And Mr. Grimwig, he says, see, I told you, Mr. Brownlow, that Oliver was not to be trusted. Mr. Brownlow is really sad and angry, but he believes Mr. Bumble. In the meantime, he turns trains Oliver to be a criminal. Gradually and slowly, he tells him stories about people who were hanged for being thieves. And even Doja and Charlie Bates, they tell Oliver that the life of a criminal is good. They say, yes, why not? Life is good in here. Oliver doesn't want to be a criminal. He doesn't want to steal. Slowly, Fagin tries to poison Oliver's mind. He keeps him lonely and then he makes him desperate to have some friends. He also tells everybody, of course, stories about how he was when he was young and all his escapades and all his adventures. And sometimes he would tell them in such a funny manner that even Oliver would laugh, even though he'd know that what Fagin had done wasn't right, but he would still laugh at all his stories. Then Oliver's taken to Bill Sykes. Oh, sorry, not now. Fagin, he goes to Bill Sykes to discuss the plans of a great robbery. And Bill Sykes, he knows the place well, and he says, well, I need a boy to help me. And he doesn't tell Fagin why he needed a boy, but he says, I need a boy because I know a way through the house. And it was decided that Oliver would go. So Nancy comes to take Oliver, and Oliver wanted to actually escape, but Nancy begs Oliver not to do that because she said, if you try to escape, it means that I'll be dead. Now, anyway, Oliver and Bill Sykes, they leave for Chertsey. They cross the market of Summersmith, right? That's what it is. They cross the market. Yes. Oops. There's the setting. This side. Yeah. Smithfields. Oh, sorry, not Summersmith. They cross the market at Smithfield, and they stay for a while at an abandoned house, and then in the night they leave to rob the house. Oliver, in the meantime, he does not know what Bill Sykes is up to. He just doesn't know what the plan was. And then when they actually creep into somebody's garden, that's the time Oliver realizes that this is about a robbery. It could also be murder. Bill Sykes, he pushes him through a small window and he says, now, Oliver, you've got to go to the front door and open it for us and let us in. That was the plan. The only way to the house was that small little window at the back, and only a small boy like Oliver could get in there. And then Oliver, he goes in, but people were already waiting for Bill Sykes. I guess they had understood that there would be a robbery and there were men ready to catch them. And there were shots, and Oliver gets wounded in the exchange. And he's carried away from there. Bill Sykes grabs him and he knows he's bleeding and he gets carried away from there. But after a while, Oliver just doesn't see anything and he just doesn't hear anything. So he's wounded. We'll do chapter 8 in the next lesson. Till then,